Today I'm joined by David Rounds, founder of NetEffect. David, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Scott. Pleasure to be here.
Great to have you. Hey, let's jump right in. So many state and federal agencies are requiring people to stay home during the COVID-19 crisis. I'm going to assume that you're hearing from lots and lots of companies who need their employees to be able to work remotely.
Yeah, that is absolutely the case. However, lots of employees have been working remotely for a good amount of time now, especially with the proliferation of SaaS applications or hosted applications on the internet, hosted infrastructure on the internet with like Microsoft Azure and Amazon Web Services. A lot of people have been working remotely. However, this is a new age. Now almost all of our clients have almost all of their employees working remotely. So we spent the last 2 to 3 weeks really focusing on that for our clients, and now it's kind of slowing down a little bit.
Okay. So let's say that I'm going to do this for the first time. Can I use one of these free apps that I see available online? Actually, I use those apps.
Yes, absolutely you can. However, the important part to discuss is really about security. So if you have your employees go download a free app, put it on their work machine, and then install it on their desktop at home, you're actually opening up a potential window into your network where any malicious actors can get in with free access. The big issue has to do with authentication of those users that are accessing those devices at home. So are their kids using those devices? Are they using secure passwords? Is there things like multi-factor authentication turned on to them? So if you don't do it right and you don't have some centralized management of that, so you could ensure that your data is protected and you're authorizing all your users and only authorized users are getting in, then you're opening yourself up to a really big security risk, turning a bad situation of all your employees working at home into a potentially devastating one. There's statistics out there that's saying a good chunk of businesses that are small businesses don't recover if they have a security breach like that. And that's what we want to prevent. So while those apps do work and they're not necessarily bad apps, it's really the key about how you manage it, and either have an outsourced IT provider or your in-house IT provider find a solution that allows you to do it centrally and securely.
Okay, so let's say we don't do these free apps. What options do I have?
So probably the easiest one as far as overall management of the network is going to be a remote desktop server from Microsoft. This allows one single place or multiple servers that everyone accesses at the same time to grant access into the network, and it uses your normal network authentication and user authentication to make sure that only authorized users get in. Things like multi-factor is still important, but the big factor here is that each user has their own unique environment that they get to see and use, or frankly, they could actually remote directly into their desktop. And if you've done right, it's very secure, and it's something your IT department or outsourced IT provider can manage very easily. There is a downside to it, though. Downside to it is there's some cost involved in it. It is have some capital outlay. It does require at least one, preferably 2 or more servers, and there's some licensing concerns into there. So while it's easy overall to implement, it takes some time, there's some cost up front. Now, this solution, though, is used by many businesses as their daily operations. It allows for less hardware concerns at the end users overall, and less maintenance to maintain overall, because you have a single place to maintain as opposed to tens or hundreds of desktops. So it's a very good solution, just some capital up front.
Okay, well, let's say that my budget isn't there. I can't handle a big budgetary outlay. What other solutions do I have available to me?
Well, most businesses are, especially the larger ones, but even the small and medium-sized businesses nowadays have a commercial-grade firewall. Now, if you're using something like one of the ones you go buy at Home Depot, or excuse me, Office Max or something along those lines, they may not have this capability, but most of them have a commercial-grade firewall. We use Fortinet, and we love the product. And VPN licenses in Fortinet are actually free. So if you're using VPNs, this allows your end users, like the old days, to dial in. I remember when I was younger, dialing in using my AOL modem to get into the network. And
I remember easily,
that too. Yeah, at least it doesn't make all the noise it used to anymore.
Right.
So most businesses have the capability, and with almost all of our employees now, for business employees having high-speed internet access, it does open that capability up. The challenge in lies there is that there is a security risk if not set up properly. The big concern there is think about what's being done on these home machines. So you have websites aren't being filtered like they would be on the corporate network. You have the kids using these machines at home. So you have no idea what's on these machines as a business owner or an executive. In fact, you don't even know if they have antivirus that's current or up to date or if they're being patched. So all the things you've worked really hard to do in your corporate network to make sure you're secure, to prevent things like ransomware and malware and things like that from having in your corporate network is now just been opened up to these machines if it's not set up properly. So it's very important that you make sure you have a secure way to get in with these home machines. So if you're going to do that, the best thing is to really use a corporate device. And if not, then you want to make sure that your IT department or your outsourced IT provider is installing the corporate tools, antivirus and malware protections that you would have on those endpoints. Now, a lot of large businesses do this already. It's the small and medium-sized businesses where I really have the concern and where they have the biggest risk. So doing things like secure passwords and 2FA is definitely important, but you also want to make sure end users are educated, that they're not allowing their kids to work on their machines while they're still connected to the work network.
Right.
You know, that could turn into a potentially bad situation that we have now with everyone working from home into a disastrous situation where corporate resources are encrypted or infected and causes an actual outage.
Yeah, I bet. So to wrap up, David, what's the takeaway folks need to be thinking about?
Well, very simply is, hey, everyone's going to have to learn how to work remotely, at least for the short term. So have a secure solution in place. Talk to your internal IT department, inspect it a little bit, make sure that there is secure, that there isn't risk like we've talked about. And if not, reach out to an outsourced IT provider. Make sure you do some vetting on them and that they're a reputable organization and talk to them about it. There are secure ways to do this. There are ways to do it effectively, and there's ways to do it for fairly low cost. But also don't forget that you could also look at this in the big picture as well. Like, how do you allow this to happen ongoing for the future? So that you can offer this as a benefit to your staff in the future or be flexible in case this comes back next year, for example. So things like remote desktop aren't a bad thing to look at, even though there's capital outlay, because it can actually lower your costs overall in the future as well.
Got it. Dave, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.